Thank you. The Reverend Elizabeth Mount wrote these words entitled Co-Regulation. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another, generation to generation. We awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine, a flame that cannot be lit without a spark, a life cannot begin without the air, and we cannot find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together. If we're new to one another, my name is Ann Barker. I've lived and studied and worked in 3 provinces and 2 states, and sometimes a bus with no fixed address. And while I currently make a home with my loved ones in Saskatoon, one of which is in those Zoom squares, I'm out in glory, that's my wife. I was born 3.5 kilometers from this spot at the Royal Jubilee Hospital. So there is a sense of coming home when I am in this place. Before that day, my closest family had made Vancouver Island and the Lower Mainland their homes, some of them for only 1 or 2 or 3 generations. Our roots are on another continent, but my conscious identity begins here. In the book Feeling Seen by Jodie Carrington, an Alberta psychologist whose specialties are working with first responders and working with teachers and children, Carrington writes about the power of co-regulation, how when we are together, we impact each other. We have the ability to calm one another, to reassure one another. All of us spend a lifetime figuring out self-regulation. But like Elizabeth said in the opening reading, co-regulation we reach for automatically. We cry when we have a need, even when we're the earliest infant, and something, hopefully, meets that need. Someone, something. Carrington talks about how we cannot teach ourselves in isolation how to self-regulate, to calm ourselves, to center ourselves, to settle ourselves, to be well, to be in that core space of who we are as a being. It's taught to us by everyone around us and all the encounters that we have. And you can see how it can be taught to us well, or it can be taught to us in challenging or unfortunate ways. Our ability to self-regulate is shaped by the people around us. Here's an example. If somebody is at work and they're unhappy, they're grumpy, they're in a complainy mood, I think we've all had a complainy mood at some point. And if they go to another coworker and they say, complainy, 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 if that coworker joins the complaining conversation, what happens? Escalation, right? They ramp each other up, right? And then I, and you know what else? And another thing. But if I start complaining and your energy is settled or calm, if you say something like, that sounds frustrating, is there something that would help in this moment? Not necessarily that you're going to fix it for me, not even what can I do, just Is there something that could help in this moment? We feel seen. That's Jodi's book, Feeling Seen. We are all on a quest to feel seen. I start my experience learning how to regulate my being. In baby talk, we call it self-soothing. If you have raised children or been around babies or been a baby, I think I've got you all now. You know that self-soothing needs help, right? To learn how to self-soothe. You don't take a baby and say, be calm now, and have it work. I mean, not unless it's a magical baby. I'm sure some of you were like that, but. It needs somebody centered in their self, which means they're not panicking even though you've been crying for 42 hours, which means it might not be the parent who's exhausted. It needs somebody to say, give me a shift, take the baby, and what do we do when a baby has seemingly lost control?
Sing.
We hold it, we rock it.
Sing.
What's that?
We sing.
We sing, right? How many of you have sung You Are My Sunshine 400,000 times at some point in your life?
To a granddaughter whose name is Sunshine.
Aww, to a granddaughter whose name is Sunshine. Beautiful. Now, it wasn't a thing when my guys were little, but now people swaddle a baby. You wrap it up tight, which seems kind of weird and counterintuitive, like you're trapping them. But what you're doing is comforting them. It's like a cosmic hug that holds the whole thing together. When I'm losing my calm, probably the first thing that would help is not if you come up and hug me, because I might scream or panic or jump back or like, I'm not ready to be hugged. It might for some people. But when I'm losing my calm, I don't need a partner in that. I need somebody who can hang on to theirs. When somebody is calm beside you, they are automatically co-regulating. That not magical energy, just regular life, is resonating with you. It goes back and forth. If you were one upset person in a room full of calm, unless we're in a really complicated situation, and we're talking ordinary situations, if you're in a room full of calm and the room stays calm, your ability to find your center happens a lot faster. This is one of the heartbreaking challenges that COVID brought. So if you live alone and you are alone in your space, you don't have the physical co-regulation of other people. The spiritual teacher Ram Dass is credited as saying, we are all just walking each other home, or wheeling, or riding alongside. If we were to journey alone our entire lives, we learn to regulate ourselves or find our centered self by observing others from a distance. It's much harder. In COVID, we were observing everyone from a distance unless we were fortunate enough to have a partner who could find their centered self in our home. When we journey side by side, we have the ability to support and smooth and enhance one another's journeys. We can be scared together or worried together, but not have to escalate if we remember that we're trying to walk one another home. You remember all the conversations you've heard or lived through about how to get babies to sleep? Remember Ferberizing? That was in that whole series of movies whose names I forget. My wife is yelling it in my ear in the window. Maybe she'll let Amanda know.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Right? It was a great comedy movie, and the dad, I think it was De Niro, was saying, you have to Ferberize them. You lock them in the room, you shut the door, and you tough it out. And that kid, you wait it out, and eventually they will settle down. Because eventually they gave up. Which isn't, it works, but it maybe isn't the ideal message if you are suffering or struggling or crying or your little heart is breaking. Nobody's coming. It's not the message we want to give. That works at all the ages, not just the baby age. Then there's swaddling. We have that reassuring compression. Our dogs like thunder coats, right? Reassuring compression. People have learned to use weighted blankets. Reassuring compression. So even alone, you could find some comfort in that sense that you've got that. And especially if you're a person who doesn't feel great about physical touch, you can have a weighted blanket, and then you've got that feeling of being held without having to do that with a human. We rock and we walk and we bounce the babies. It still doesn't always work. And then we need co-regulation with another adult to remind us that it's going to end someday. Someone who will take a shift. Someone who will help us carry the weight of the journey that we're on. Some of us didn't ever yet learn how to self-soothe in a healthy fashion. Some of us are still learning how to do that. Our journeys with addiction often come from an injury in this fashion, like are connected to injuries around you didn't get what you needed, and so you seek it some other way. We soothe ourselves with drugs, with alcohol, with food, with shopping, with gambling, with following people around and never letting them be alone. Like there's all kinds of ways we soothe ourselves because we haven't learned how to do it in an internal, calming kind of fashion. We try all kinds of things, and most of them are trying to help us jump over learning how to self-soothe and just jump to soothed. Like, this thing will make you feel happy. But wait, how do I get there when I'm not in my isolation tank or my musical theater space that lifts up my heart? What religious communities give us is co-regulation. We bring our junk. We bring our complaining moments and our mistaken ideas and things. We do that too, we're human. But in our best moments, somebody in the room says, oh, that sounds hard. What would help you move past that idea? How do we get through that? How do we resolve that? How do we help you do that thing? How do we help you not feel alone in that thing? We might not be able to fix it. Not everything can be fixed. But the only thing worse than a thing that can't be fixed is going through a thing that can't be fixed alone. And we can co-regulate on Zoom. She writes all about it in the book. We can co-regulate on the phone. We can even co-regulate by mail. It just takes longer. Currently, a lot longer. And we can learn to self-soothe from a book or a movie or a story, harder ways. But the resonance of being bodies together in the same place is exponentially more effective. So if we think about when COVID landed, those first scary days and weeks, when you first went from, there's a thing, I wonder what it will do, to stay home, what did you focus on? What were the essentials that came up?
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper? Food?
hardware to connect.
The hardware to connect. So survival, the basic life things, how do you get the things to just, we're going to go to the bathroom and we're going to need to eat if we're going to come out of this, and we'd like it to be less messy than it might have to be if we don't have toilet paper.
That community was okay, that our family and friends were okay.
Right? So we've got hardware to connect, we've got phones, we've got slow mail. How do we make sure our people are okay? We learned how to stand outside a window at a care home with signs if that was the only way you could get to be with your people. Survival and connection were the two most important things on the planet. Alcohol and drug use rates soared. They haven't come down yet. Because when we learn how to self-soothe, it becomes a habit and a practice, and it worked in a way, and we keep doing it, and sometimes we become dependent on it. Because survival and connection, if you're scared about your survival and you don't have adequate connection to co-regulate, you need comfort, you need numbing. You need a way to get through it without losing it. So now we're out again. It's not over. I just do not like the term post-COVID. It's not over. It's on the rise again everywhere. It's got new creepy mutations. It's not a done deal, but we're out. We're here in person, we're walking on the streets. Mostly, people aren't wearing masks anymore. We're out. If you think about how you spend your time and your brain time and your lifetime now, where does survival land? How high in your priority list is it? Do you even think about survival? Some of us do in some ways, right? We might have a health crisis. We might have a health crisis. Survival becomes very present. We heard Amanda's beautiful Pebble story about 4 young men who came and stayed and helped strangers. Survival and connection. I was saying to Amanda yesterday, like, clearly that experience changes Amanda's life, but it also changed their life. You know, can you remember being through a really hard thing at some point and how it changes your perspectives in the world? But day to day, do you spend your time thinking about survival?
No.
Not so much. Maybe what's for lunch, but not like, will I be able to get lunch? Maybe where's the bathroom, but not like, will there be toilet paper, right? Where does connection land in your hierarchy now? If you had a top 5, where would it be in your top 5? If it's in your top 5?
1.
4.5? Is that, okay, 5 is at the top? Okay,
No, 5.
so 4.5, 5. Okay, is that true for everybody? Are you thinking it's not true for everybody, is it? Is there anybody that it's low on the thing, that you're not thinking about connection all the time? You're not seeking connection?
I recognize, I think I take it for granted
Right,
because it's so much there.
right? Kathy says she thinks she takes it for granted because it is so much there. We can connect. If we want to, we can be with a person. COVID told us you can't be with a person, right? You can't until it let us pod and whatever. That didn't stop people from finding people, but it said stay away from the persons. So it drove connection right to the top of our attention. If we don't have connection, we're not going to make it. That's what interdependence is. But we all have a different way of being connected, different needs around being connected. different resources work for us. We like to know that we can go to the store or get a coffee. I like to write sometimes in a coffee shop where I don't have to talk to anybody, but I like the hum and chatter of life, the background music of lives going on. I don't need their help to do that, but I like them to be there. Survival and connection are at the top of our necessities. They might not be at the top of our attention. So I'm going to ask you to find a comfortable state, a meditative state. We're going to shift gears a little bit, but you'll see how it will all tie together in the end. We're just going to have this meditative journey together, and then we'll sing a song together. Our music folks will lead us in a song. So I want you to imagine the earth. And when we're talking about interdependence, we could be talking about the universe, but that's a little hard to picture in its entirety. So just take the earth any way you want to. And I want you to imagine you're casting a vision of global interdependence on that globe. What does that look like for you? So you're going to superimpose a way that everything holds and works together. It could be friendly spiders casting a beautiful silken web all around the whole globe, lovingly cradling the planet so nothing falls out and everything holds together. You might see energy lines, like Asian traditions speak of energy meridians. Or maybe you see a telecommunications commercial that shows you the span of cell coverage, all those lines bursting out all around, wrapping around the globe. Glowing, beautiful lines that connect the world together. It could be a tapestry of water systems, rivers and streams and oceans and lakes and aquifers. You could have a visualization of the ways trees communicate underground, mycelium networks, or murmurations of birds wrapping the globe. Where are you in this network? Where do you plug into the story? How does it hold you? Is there something in this vision that connects you to your centered self? Our interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part is the whole thing, and somehow, somewhere, we are connected. I invite you to make your way back into the presence of the others in the room, in your home spaces, all together. And our music folks will lead us in a song.